Really? April 5th is my birthday.
A Terran holy day.
For those of you who have been living under a rock, or this is your first time ever seeing a video of mine, know that I have been very critical of Discovery Seasons 1 and 2, but really like Season 3. As of the upload of this video, this remains true. However, I am seeing some very troubling hints that have been weaving throughout the different episodes that I really hope are distractions or not meant to be connected. Because honestly, in my opinion, if they do what I think they might be trying to do, it's going to hurt the overall arc. The question I really want to ask though, is it possible that the 32nd century Starfleet is actually evil? Before we get into the evidence and foreshadowing that might be occurring, let me say that the interactions we've seen of Starfleet, of actually Starfleet, not people's opinions, gives me no reason to believe that Starfleet is in fact evil. They're pragmatic perhaps, but not doing anything bad.
The situation with the Keeley refugees has gotten worse. Sick bay is overflowing. We're having to perform triage in the corridors.
Patient 3 just started seizing, Doctor.
When we first observe Starfleet operations, we see that they are helping random travelers that had consumed poisonous food. And Starfleet does appear to want to help people. The CIC isn't above sending others on missions to defend planets, even when they are spread pretty thin. In the episode The Sanctuary, he even sends the USS Discovery, with its experimental one-of-a-kind spore drive, to observe the Emerald Chain, even though it puts that ship at risk. All because he wants to help people. There are also some points of dialogue where he's willing to go to war with the Emerald Chain to defend enough planets. Now let me be clear, I don't think the Starfleet we see here is the Starfleet we see in the 24th century. The one in the 24th century has a lot of luxuries this one doesn't.
But you're a Starfleet officer, Worf. We don't put civilians at risk or even potentially at risk to save ourselves. Sometimes that means we lose the battle, and sometimes our lives. But if you can't make that choice, then you can't wear that uniform.
When Sisko says to Worf, check your scanners before you fire, even if it gets you and your crew killed, they can't do that. The loss of one ship is major to the 32nd century Starfleet. I'd more compare this Starfleet to the 23rd century, one that wants to live and is in triage, but does want to see better. So, all that to say, at the moment, I don't think we have any definitives, and when we see Starfleet, we have no reason to believe it's any other way. That said, they could be somewhat gilded. It is perhaps they are putting on a show or we don't see behind the scenes. Let's look at some very circumstantial evidence.
I've been fascinated by Terran history and methodology since I was a boy.
The first is the existence of the man in the glasses. Now, before we get into some of the curious dialogue, his mere existence and the possibility of Section 31 existing creates a pretty large problem. All one has to do is remember how powerful Section 31 was in the Dominion War. Can you imagine what it would be, what they could do if Starfleet was totally destroyed, or at least near destroyed? But let's move past that for a second and listen to what the man in the glasses doesn't answer.
Who is really in charge now? The burn appeared to have been quite the humbling experience for the Federation. Who was responsible?
That's two questions.
Pick one.
There are conflicting theories, but no hard proof pointing at any one particular bad guy.
If you noticed, he doesn't go out of his way to say who really is in charge. The fact that Philippa asks that is concerning as well. She might be able to observe that things aren't what they appear to be. This entire interaction left me a bit weary, but let's look at some of the others.
That would require far more than one visit, Captain. There had been numerous issues. SB-19 was merely the final blow. The scarcity of dilithium was caused in part by the sheer size of the Federation. To solve that problem, it stretched member worlds beyond capacity and comfort. In its desire to serve the many, the Federation ignored the needs of the few.
The next to move to is that of the Vulcans, or Navarians, I suppose. During the episode Unification 3, the President has some really interesting dialogue. So we know that the Federation, when it was still together, began to lose sight of the one, the person. They were more worried about serving the entirety at the expense of an individual. This, led to an extreme, can be devastating and very brutal. If the Federation did truly push too hard and the burn occurred, and they had to make tougher decisions than what they were making, could they have continued into a more authoritarian state? On top of that, we also have these two interactions.
If Mr. Wren has committed serious crimes, the Federation will hold him accountable.
The Federation can't even hold itself accountable for the mess it's made or the blood on its hands.
Later, Mr. Wren, are we not?
Yes, I appreciate what you've done for me, but Federation help always comes with strings.
No, it doesn't.
And
You are free to go, provided the Quadrant accept you. However,
there's always a however.
One thing to consider when we're looking at all this: the farther away from Earth we are, the more hopeful the people are for Starfleet and the Federation, that they would return, that it's a dream for them. The closer to the Federation and Starfleet and Earth we are, the worse the opinion gets. Is it possible that those who are closer to where the Federation really is see it for what it may be? If I'm going to be honest, I hope to God Starfleet isn't evil, that there isn't someone behind the curtains. That is top tier cringe for me. I would absolutely hate it. It's honestly my hope that this is just propaganda, that Starfleet is just not able to help people who expect it. They're looking at it from a more pragmatic stance. They aren't evil, they aren't actively trying to hurt people, they're just choosing their battles because they have to. They don't have the luxury of doing anything else. You know, it's funny, I am hypercritical of Starfleet, and they do deserve it. But the basis of the Federation, the basis of Starfleet, regardless of whether they pull it off or not, is that they are trying to do good, that they are more than the sum of their parts. That's why I'm so critical of them, because they have the ability to be what we can't right now. They have the ability to show us what hope really is. And so I hope that's not taken away from us. But all of these are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.